Your name and title, please.
Okay. Joey Dunn, Deputy City Manager for Community Services, City of Bryan, Texas.
And what was your nickname growing up?
Joey. I could never leave the nickname behind in Alabama where I grew up, so it's still Joey.
Did you ever try to break out with Joe or Joseph?
I tried a little bit. I thought about it when we moved here because I didn't know a soul 31 years ago, and I just couldn't. I don't know why.
Didn't work.
Yeah, so my wife calls me Joe, but anyway, that's the only.
Joe Dunn.
Somewhat. Yeah, it's just.
Joe Dunn. That doesn't even sound right.
Right, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's too brief.
My first nickname?
Uh-huh.
Jaybird.
Oh, of course.
Of course. How could you not go with Jaybird?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
Thanks
where
for reminding me. I'll use that.
Yeah. And I'll call you Joe. Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol. I get to visit with Joey Dunn, Deputy City Manager for the City of Bryan. And full disclosure, Joey and I worked together at the City of Bryan from 2000 to 2007.
Wow.
Long time ago.
I thought it was a lot longer than that.
No, it was just intense.
Okay.
But hey, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So your counterpart, Hugh Walker, was our guest not long ago, and he said he does all the heavy lifting in the city manager's office. I could be paraphrasing a little bit, but I think that's what he meant.
He's right. I don't do anything.
So considering what he described being responsible for, what is left over for you to oversee?
Wow.
Talk about that.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
But no, it's not a lot because I don't do a lot, like I said. No, I mean, it's been a great team. You know, Keene Register pulled me back over the border back in 2006. But, you know, I had worked a couple times prior. But, you know, Hugh and I worked together a long time. And I mean, you know, seriously, though, he has a different skill set than I do. But we both kind of team up very well. It's just been great working with Hugh under Keene's leadership.
But what areas do you oversee?
Oh, okay. You
what falls
wanted a
under
more
you?
specific
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, let's not talk about Hugh anymore.
You don't want to know about our personalities. So I oversee anything development related with my planning background and, you know, development side with both cities. But, you know, it has to do with just anything economic development, permitting, development services, community development, which is our grant monies, and then a number of special projects. And then I have a couple other things that I'm responsible for, like the library system. That actually is, we manage both cities, Bryan College Station Library locations. Odds and ends, Coulter Airfield. That's an economic development initiative, but it's, you know, under that same umbrella.
Right.
I believe I got it all, but you know, really dealing more directly with a lot of boards and commissions, more of the external arm of the city. Hugh being more the internal, although he, you know, that it's not a clear line there.
Got it. So you recently represented the City of Bryan at the annual Chamber of Commerce Economic Outlook Conference, where you recap the city's economic and development successes of 2022 and looking forward in 2023 and how that's shaping up. You are not the city manager. You are not the economic development director, but you get tasked with this every year.
Every year.
So my question,
weary of it, I'm sure.
Who did you offend, and why is that person city manager Keene Register?
Did I offend him? Because I'm not quite sure. He didn't say anything to me. But no, you know, that's part of the team we have, and I look at it as I get to tell the good news every year because of the steady leadership that we've had and the position that we're in as a city.
Yeah.
But I kind of wonder why they keep asking me to come back. And I keep checking with Keene every. Are you sure? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you sure you don't want to do this, boss? And he's like, no, yeah, you got. You know, it's my job. But you know, again, you know, it's a team. Lacey will tell you, putting that thing together is a production. Kind of like where I'm sitting here, it's a production.
Right.
So many people work towards, you know, producing those kind of positive results, number one. And then two, how do we tell that story and how do we illustrate that, how we put it all together? It's a pretty big task each year, and it's a really good way to start the year is kind of looking back. So it's a really good exercise for me, and I know for the staff as well. So
you referred to Lacey. Lacey Lively is sitting in with Joey to make sure he doesn't say anything wrong. Lacey is the communications and marketing director for the City of Bryan. And Lacey and I got to work together at the City of College Station from 2009 to 2022. So There's that connection. But your presentation, I think it spanned 34, 37 slides. It had a lot of information.
Used to be 50-something plus.
Boy. But it covered a lot of ground and a lot of progress. But would you hit on some of the things that really stand out to you as markers of progress that you think Bryan residents especially should pay attention to?
Well, again, planning is a long-term initiative, right? It's not, and that's the downside when we have term limits with our leadership. I started with leadership number one because it doesn't happen by accident without positive leadership of multiple mayors and councils. And I would say after the last several, you can really kind of chart it back to, Jay, when you were there, or even prior, late 90s, early 2000s, is that positive leadership that carries things forward. But long-term plans that make a difference, they're not a 4-year term. They're more like 40 years, and so it takes a while. And I've been real privileged to be see that for a long period of time. But, again, the things that we talked about, we always give updates on, people come and they want to hear about, give us some tangible numbers of what we experienced last year and what to expect this year. I don't go too far out on projecting. We leave that up to Dr. Gaines and some other experts that get there and say, okay, here's what we think, inflation and other things are going to do. But I do feel like people want to hear a realistic, balanced view about kind of what's the health of the city. I feel like put on the spot to be the doctor to come in and give a diagnosis about where the city as a whole, and that's kind of intimidating to think about. But I also tried to, at least this year, talk about some of the challenges we have as well, because I think some people are kind of tired of hearing it's just good news every time. And is there anything?
Right.
And there are challenges, that are affecting the city of Bryan, just like every other city. Inflation, like we said, or the cost of debt, and with large capital projects and those types of things. So overall, what we really focused on, besides the numbers, is the catalyst areas of our city. Midtown Bryan. I know the Midtown is used a lot.
I'm a Midtowner.
You are, okay. Good. Yeah, town. Yeah, that's
what do we call ourselves?
Okay, we need to coin that.
Get Lacey on that.
Lacey, can you put that in our marketing? So, but Midtown Bryan, certainly downtown Bryan, and I know I keep talking about. I've been involved in it since I was an intern in 1993.
Right.
But you've got again continued emphasis on the mom and pop business growth, the arts and culture. The things that make us unique, that lies in the heart of downtown Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got new corridors, Highway 47, which is now John Sharp Parkway, or the Innovation Corridor, if you talk about it from terms of the zoning district we just put in place out there, connecting all the way to Relish campus. And then there's University Drive on the east side. That's an area that's growing in both cities. It's along the border. The Bio Corridor. I'm kind of jumping back left and right here. But, those are, major initiatives that both cities are working together on. So that's what we tried to do, is touch on those. I only have 15 minutes, not like this one. I have 28. It's 15 minutes to kind of, give a summary. And so we try not to throw too many things up, at folks.
Right. So you talked about sort of these pockets of development success, downtown, obviously, Midtown, their continued development on the east and west sides. The things that, as a longtime resident here, that I stay interested in are kind of the connective corridors between all of those, right? And one of the ones that sticks in my mind all the time, which is real easy to criticize and real difficult to solve, I think, is the Texas Avenue corridor.
You got it.
Between, say, about Villa Maria and Highway 21. Right. Bryan is an old city.
Right.
And so it has gone through a lot since incorporating in 1871. So, how does Bryan, a city whose leadership seems to make things happen instead of just waiting for things to happen, which I think is pretty great, how does the city work with property owners and so forth to really transform a corridor like that needs help, like within a single generation? How do you go about that, planning guy?
Jay, it's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
Okay.
And that was the analogy that when I spoke to council several years ago, we were talking about the need to look at ways to beautify that corridor. But it's not just one dimensional, right? That's not just the only issue.
Right.
It's a TxDOT or state-owned road. There's coordinating with landowners all the way up and down that entire corridor. It's a 7-mile stretch, I believe. It has a lot of different character as you head. Even the most extreme north is more of a residential area, of course, but goes to the heart of downtown. So there's different segments to it. But again, one thing at a time. You got to start somewhere. And I think what's been great, as you hit the city limits, right? What do you see? Well, there's opportunities there, with some space there at Hensel Park, but there's overhead utilities, right? How do you work maybe around those or relocate some of that? BTU, we're very proud, is in the position financially to do some things with relocating and putting underground utilities in different various locations, and so that's part of it. But working with TxDOT to put in landscaping and streetscaping, and so it has to be public and private partnership together, and multiple private partners too. So really our strategy right now, working with TxDOT. We've started construction. I mentioned this at the presentation, but the first phase is right at 21 in Texas. Texas Avenue on Highway 21, with some intersection improvements there.
Okay.
Working with TxDOT, there is a median being proposed, and that's a challenge because you probably have 100,000 driveways. I don't know how many, but there's so many to work through, and we don't want to hurt business. But at the same time, again, that's the we clean up not just the look, but we improve safety along that corridor. So again, it's just a one bite at a time approach.
Yeah.
We have a grant program. It's a corridor beautification program. It started on South College, and that's been extended to Texas Avenue as well, where businesses can come in and say, "Hey, I want to clean up my parking lot, put in some landscaping." Maybe eliminate a driveway or two. The city has a grant program that we help with those financial burdens.
So, going to bounce around a little bit because a couple of minutes ago you mentioned Hensel Park. Yeah. And so I guess technically Hensel Park, I guess that's on the College Station side.
It is.
But it's a Texas A&M park, right?
It is.
So what is the City of Bryan's involvement or focus or attention to that Hensel Park area?
It's very important to us because it's surrounded, I believe, on 3 sides by Bryan. If you look at a city limit map, and nobody cares where the city limits are between the cities, by the way. Only I do, or those of us who work for the cities. But Hensel Park is sort of a bump into Bryan, if you will, separated by a creek on the north end and then South College and Texas Avenue. So we have a lot of neighborhoods that are right up against that whole entire area. We're looking at redevelopment opportunities, not in every preservation and redevelopment opportunities in the immediate areas, particularly on I'll call it the Midtown Bryan side, which really is the west side of South College. There's some older, I'd say even dilapidated rental housing over there. And so it presents an opportunity, just like Northgate, to have high-density residential redevelopment. But Hensel Park itself, it reaches out and touches all these areas. So it's a highly sensitive area from that standpoint, but it is a huge opportunity. It's a great asset. It's been underutilized, in our opinion. And again, we're just happy to hear that the university is now focusing on that area and looking at it as a way to interact with the community. How's the pedestrian, bike and connections how are those to the community? North Oakwood, as well as, again, Rosemary on the east side. All those are ways to kind of create more of a, leverage it as an amenity for the whole community, not just the university itself. So we're excited about it. We know that it's in the planning stages, and I think the College of Landscape Architecture is in charge of putting together a plan, and I think both cities are represented, and lots of entities involved in that planning effort.
Yeah. So are plans in enough focus to where you can sort of roughly talk about what you see it evolving into?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
We are very early stages. I think from what we've heard, we like it. For example, the creek that runs. I don't know what creek that is along the north side of Hensel Park, but anyway, that there's opportunities to have crossings there for pedestrians and that type of thing. And then I know there's some future development of the Century Square area as well, kind of around that area. So, but beyond that, the details have not been determined yet. So we're just eager to be part of that process.
Got it. So if you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters, and my guest is City of Bryan Deputy City Manager Joey Dunn, and with him is the city's Director of Communication Marketing, Lacey Lively. So, Joey, no offense, but what genius came up with the slogan, "The Good Life Texas Style"?
I don't know who that was. Some former employee who left long ago. We're trying to find him. No, it was a great slogan. It's been 20. How long has it been?
It's
Jay?
been close to 20 years. So that was probably around 2004, 2005, something like that. And back then, Bryan really struggled to find an identity because we weren't home of Texas A&M. We weren't the home of anything or anyone super notable. The rebirth of downtown was just getting started. I mean, the hard work was just getting started. Nothing groundbreaking was invented there. I mean, it wasn't a destination for mountains and rivers and things like that. So we went through.
What are you talking about?
We went through a really long and public process, and I think we landed in a good place at the time. And it has served the city well for about 20 years. But a lot has changed in the city of Bryan in 20 years. And so that's a long wind-up to ask you this. In your opinion, what is Bryan's identity today? Like, what singular, authentic theme or idea could or should Bryan hang its hat on in 2023 that maybe we couldn't do 20 years ago?
Well, I think there's a discovery of our identity. I mean, I think Bryan has, kind of that long-term, we're a diverse community, of socioeconomic, cultural populations that are kind of all joined together. We have great, again, we mirror very similar to the state of Texas in the way of our population. And so who we are is a diverse community. And it's not just, and I don't mean to just, but I mean, you've got white, Hispanic, and African-American populations, but we also have very specific ethnic groups, the Czechs, the Polish, the Italians, and they have populations in Bryan or have for many generations. So in that sense, we really haven't changed a lot. It's just a matter of how identifying and celebrating that. Yeah. We've had the opportunity, and Jay, I know we worked together. Both cities work together on the Convention and Business Bureau side, and now each city has its own department.
Right.
But Bryan has we have Destination Bryan now that is an organization that's separate from the city of Bryan, but they have identified or come up with a new branding effort that has to do with Legends Reborn, and it's really kind of celebrating all of those unique elements that make us who we are. It's not any one particular group of people, and that's what's amazing. I think that's, we're finally being able to kind of tell our story through that effort. I think the Legends brand is, everybody has an opinion what a legend is. Is it, I don't know, is it Spider-Man? I don't know. I mean, what is a legend? What, is it a superhero? Right. Is it a myth? But it seems as though, and only about 2.5 years, Destination Bryan's been in existence. But the last year they've kind of gone down that new path with this brand, and we feel like it ties in very nicely with the stories that have never really been told. And I think it is, those are relevant. People are snapping to it, or I think that's. I'm in the middle. I think it's great. I don't know, if that's everybody's opinion, but we feel very good about that branding effort. And, that's an organization separate from the city, but it really is kind of telling the story and can do a lot of things that the city itself, I say the city, but the organization may not be able to tell that story in the same way.
So what I'm hearing is you're actively working to erase my branding project from the water towers.
It is still the good life. It's all about the good life, Jay. Come on.
It is. Because I have a definition of the good life.
Yes.
And you have a definition.
And what is your definition of good life?
I'm a Midtowner, Joey. Joe Dunn. I'm a Midtowner.
Okay.
That's my good life.
Well, I agree.
So my first career was in radio news before I came to join you guys at the City of Bryan. And so in every communication marketing job I held after that, I kind of viewed things through the lens of a reporter, and that served me pretty well doing that. Your municipal government career started kind of in the Main Street area and planning and development world. So even though you've been in the city manager's office for a long time, how often do you tend to approach projects and issues through the lens of a planner?
Well, what is that lens? It's a good question, but it has been, I think it has served me well to be able to have that background. I came to Texas A&M to be an architect, and then I decided, that's nice, and I enjoyed the design side, but really the practical side was the public interest side, and more I'll call it urban design, and so I really gravitated to downtown Bryan, and initially through my internship, but yeah, I would say that it has been it served me well in terms of thinking long term, because again the changeover in leadership does require that long-term view. How do we keep our focus on what keeps us unique, makes us unique, and so, I mean, I feel like that's it's been very gratifying to see the progress made, and it's also been unusual to stay in the same community for this long.
Yeah,
I haven't been drop kicked out of here. It's been a good run. Hopefully, I can keep it up. But I mean, to be able to see that progress over time. And it's very gratifying to have that. But I went to A&M again. Still didn't know what I wanted to do in grad school, and changed yet again. The only city planner I knew growing up. I did know what it was because I grew up in a small German town in Alabama called Coleman, and it was founded by a retired German general. Retired, I don't know. He came over here.
Okay,
his name was John G. Coleman, and he was a city planner. And he did some things there that were pretty unique. It had a railroad, sounds familiar, through the middle of town. And back in the late 1800s, he put it below grade. And so you don't have nobody even hears the train, much less, did extra wide streets. Those simple moves made ahead of time saved billions of dollars over, centuries. So I see that as a again, long term. What are those moves that can be made? And so, again, that's something that I feel like we've been able to do here in some ways, in smaller scale.
If only we had the opportunity at some point to put the railroad
if only,
below grade.
If only. I know.
Have to have lived here for a while to get that reference.
Right.
That was once upon a time something that was discussed. So with our remaining few minutes here, getting back to the fact that you recently presented to the Chamber of Commerce's Economic Outlook Conference, is there any data that you want to throw out, make sure that folks are aware in terms of numbers or impact or momentum and trajectory, anything you want to drop on them?
We seem to very interested in our single family growth. We hit a peak last year, 955 single family permits, which we never dreamed we'd ever get to that in a single year. This last year, I think 846. Thank you, Lacey. And still, down from the peak of last year, but still the highest or the second highest ever. But we're seeing, again, that growth of a new single family, of new residential, and I think that's important. We'd like to toot that horn a little bit. I didn't really touch on this a lot on Wednesday without enough time, but I just think that Bryan has the opportunity, and I think it goes back to the branding, to really celebrate who we are with the arts. I was a music minor. My wife's a music major. We moved here from Nashville, I don't know how long ago it was now, 31 years ago.
Okay.
But the first impression was, where's the music? Where is the arts? I mean, it's here, but it's another one of those challenges. It's hidden. How do we celebrate that? How do we bring that out? I really think Bryan has an opportunity to celebrate. We've got downtown arts and culture. Mm-hmm. We are now a music-friendly designated city in the state of Texas. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean a whole lot unless you do something with that and really promote that. But A&M is now focusing on creating a school for fine arts. Now, we don't know exactly where it'll land, and I'm not sure that's the name of it yet. But that's something that Susan Balabino mentioned on Wednesday as well. We're excited about partnering with them because you've got you need that kind of infrastructure. So we see Bryan as being well positioned, to really create a live music, hub, or that kind of arts and culture.
Is that also part of how downtown venues are evolving a bit, like at the Palace and so forth,
Yes.
to try to pull in more of those live music
Right.
opportunities and so forth?
Right. I mean, I think we're very happy with the Schulman family that's doing the renovations of they've completed the Queen, and then the Billy's Bar and Grill, and then we have Palace across the street. Again, they managed those and owned them 100 years ago.
Right.
But those are opportunities next to the Grand Stafford, and so yeah, we want to create sort of a place where you don't even have to hear who's playing or who's going to perform. You just know something's going to happen. You're going to head that way, and then something. We want that kind of activity, particularly in downtown, but not just in downtown. I mean, Lake Walk or other parts of Bryan, but certainly we have that opportunity to really take that forward, and so I thought I'd mention that.
No, I think that's well, and downtown really has emerged as the hub for the local arts scene. I think it has the vibe and the authenticity to do that, and I imagine you guys want to capitalize on that and continue to see that to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's something that's kind of been there, but just we've really got to capitalize on it, and that it's organic. You can plan for that. But your planning side is more the infrastructure, like what can we do to support that positive vibe, but then step back and let private come in and do the fun stuff,
But again, that investment in the infrastructure started when you and I were working together, in the early 2000s. The very unsexy work of investing in that infrastructure and making things pedestrian friendly and burying the utility lines and the whole thing. It was
you remember
it was a slog, but look where we are 20 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to lay that infrastructure, but again, government can't do everything. We've got to step back and allow, your mom and pops, your arts related, boutique type of business to come in and do some fun stuff, events and other things. So, we've been happy how that's happening, but what can we do to promote that more? I think in Bryan.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming in and having a chat.
Is time up already?
Oh, its time is up. So, Joey Dunn and Lacey Lively, thank you guys for the talk.
It's good to talk to you, Jay.
Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio, 90.9 KAMU FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Marketing and Communications. Our show is engineered and edited by the lovely and the talented Matt Dittman. You can learn more about us at kamu.tamu.edu/radio. If you have suggestions or comments about guests and topics, feel free to email me anytime. Jaysocol, JAYSOCOL @tamu.edu.